Welcome to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, where every week I take a look into the world of film and television with those who have lived it and experienced it. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and for this week's show, I thought it would be fun to go back and revisit one of the classic roundtables that I did back in the summer of 2018. And it also has to do with a certain musical that's being released on Disney Plus this week. You know it as Hamilton. And Hamilton's one of those things that I didn't initially get the hype of it a couple of years ago when, I had a couple of coworkers just rave about it and talk about how great it was. And I didn't really get it until I listened to the soundtrack, and I thought, wow, this is actually really cool. So I got to see the show live in that same summer of 2018, and we had the idea, why not do a roundtable on it? Because this is actually one of the last shows that I did before I took my long hiatus and then came back with the rebranding of the show. So I thought, with it being 4th of July and also the release of Hamilton, I thought it would be fun to go back and revisit, because there are a lot of people who didn't listen to the original run of my show. So I thought it would be fun to just take a look back at it. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. This is the Hamilton Roundtable with myself, my friends Adam Waldron, Luke Thompson, Anna Striano, Jake Hall, and of course the one and only Joey Truncale. We talk about how we were introduced to Hamilton, our thoughts on seeing it live, some of our favorite songs and characters. And the funny thing is, we actually talk about the possibility of a Hamilton movie. So it was fun going back and listening to that part of the roundtable and seeing where we are, right around 2 years later, because this was initially released in mid-July of 2018. So hopefully you guys enjoy listening to it. For those who are listening to it for the first time, hope you enjoy. For those who have heard it again, hopefully you enjoy your repeat viewing. So without further ado, here is the Hamilton Roundtable.
How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean by Providence and scholar, up to be a hero and a scholar? The $10 founding father without a father got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a self-starter, by being a lot smarter. By 14, they placed him in charge of a trading charter. Then every day while slaves were being slaughtered and carted away across the waves, he struggled and kept his guard up. Inside he was longing for something to be a part of.
The brother was ready to beg, steal, barter, or borrow.
Then a hurricane came and devastation reigned.
I'm sorry, Derek.
We're almost there, guys.
Yeah, keep going. I haven't podcasted.
Adam, can we?
But just you wait. Just you wait.
Can we rewrite like the James Corden part, but can we do it to where it's all about Derek and that's the intro to the podcast?
Oh.
Derek Diamond. Wait, here we go. Derek Diamond EXP. The podcast Derek Diamond EXP. And there's a million things he hasn't potted about.
But
Just you wait. Just you wait.
All right.
When he was 10, his
Joey's like, that doesn't fit.
When he was 10, he watched Star Wars for the first time.
He loved it so much that he began to rhyme.
All right, well.
So welcome to the Hamilton Roundtable. As you can tell by that wonderful rendition of Alexander Hamilton, we'll be talking about the really cool musical that I think most of us here were, or at least on this side of the table, were recently introduced to. So joining me on today's roundtable, I think this is your officially 27th appearance.
I thought this was 28.
No, earlier was
no,
28.
Well, no, earlier is 28 because the Unicorn Wrangler one airs next week.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I just confused. Tune in next week to hear the Unicorn Wranglers on the Derek Diamond Experience.
It's non-linear.
I was gonna say, this is like Memento. You're
Yeah. You have to start, tattooing it to my arm.
And we already did a Christopher Nolan. So
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, anyway, for the 27th time, Mr. Adam Waldron, how are you, sir?
Yay. Just padding those stats before 200.
We got to have you on one more so that can be your...
My 30th.
Yeah.
My 30th. I was thinking about that, actually.
Yeah.
I was like, that'd be fun. I could claim I'd be part of, 15% of the Derek Diamond experiences.
Sitting to his left, making his first official appearance. The other time was when I forced him to join me for my Star Wars live episode. Mr. Jake Hall, how are you, sir?
Jake Hall.
Pretty good, Derek. How are you?
You get your first Derek Diamond experience pin.
Oh, thank you
There
very
you go.
much, Adam. Thank you.
There's a
on
pack
right
of saltines and a cup of tap water waiting at the door for you. When you leave.
Absolutely. That's what I want.
Sitting across from me is Mr. Lucas Thompson. How are you? I think this is your third, maybe fourth time on the show?
I don't know, Derek. We did like a football episode and then another football episode, and I don't know. Just happy to be back.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
I'm very happy to be back, Derek.
Yeah.
Better.
Sitting to his left, I think this is your officially fourth time?
Wow,
Sure.
she's been on more than I have.
Yep.
I think so. I'm including when you hijacked the show for the Star Wars.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you
I
count
don't
that?
remember the Star Wars. Was I a part of it?
No, it was
That
the
was
one
the
at
one
the
live
stadium.
at the stadium.
Miss Anna Striano, welcome back.
Hi. Glad to be here.
And
So
sitting
violent.
and sitting to her left is
Bert
the wordsmith
Hamilton.
himself, Mr. Joey Truncale. Welcome.
Thank you. Musical theater is my one true
It's
love.
the prodigy of Virginia Tech. Joey Truncale, drop some knowledge.
This is a train wreck, people.
Mr. Joey Truncale.
I can go
Anyway.
all night, my friend. I got them all up here.
You spit, I'll sit.
We'll see
Yeah, you
where
don't have
we
your iPad,
stand.
So I got you.
God.
Keep getting nailed to the wall. And Derek said, podcast, this is ridiculous.
So, I figured we'd start by asking everybody, how were you introduced to Hamilton? I think most everyone on the to my left will probably have the same answer, but we'll start with Adam.
Well, I was introduced to Hamilton, and I took a very, and I will say this, I took a very snarky approach to it when Lucas came back from his New York trip, and like, you know, all he was talking about was all the Broadway plays he went and saw. And I'm not a big musical fan. Like,
He's really not, folks.
I'm really not. Like, I enjoy going to them and experiencing them. Like, that's what I enjoy about Broadway. So obviously, being in the Gulf Coast, it's a little tough to get up there and experience these plays. So I'm not one that's going to throw on the tracks and just listen to them. So Luke came back. I remember we were working late at the stadium. I don't really remember what for, but I remember it was nighttime. And Luke was like, "Oh, I got to play you this song," and it was the "You'll Be Back."
I think it might have been Media Day.
It might have been. Media
I
Day.
think it might have been because I went up in March.
Yeah,
and so that would have been.
It was probably Media Day, and yeah, you came back and you played "You'll Be Back," and I remember you got up and like went out of the room or something, and it just like kept playing. And I remember I heard Yorktown, I heard My Shot, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually kind of good, you know, because like at first I was just like, okay, because the King George ones are kind of Broadway-y, and then I actually got into some Hamilton ones, and I remember I made the conscious decision of being like, well, you know what, I'm driving into work today, let me just put it on, and I started, and it like took me like 5 trips, but I finally got through the whole thing, and I was like,
And he was hooked.
I was hooked. I was Hamilton hooked from that moment on. So Luke Thompson with the credit.
Jake?
My story's kind of the same. It's Luke Thompson's fault. When he came back from Broadway.
Lin-Manuel Miranda, if you're listening, I'd really like some commission fees. Thank you.
But no, I didn't get hooked into it as fast as Adam did. I think what really started me was Adam and Luke singing Never Gonna Be President from the Reynolds pamphlet. So I'm like, Luke, what is that song y'all keep singing? They're like, oh, it's from Hamilton. Next thing you know, I downloaded the Hamilton soundtrack on my phone, and every time I started driving, I started playing it,
And sending me Snapchats.
sending you Snapchats of me listening to it, driving down the interstate, singing it, and that's how I got into it. Thanks, Luke.
Anytime, buddy, anytime. I got into it. My best friend from high school, we were planning a trip to New York, and she was a big Hamilton fan. And I never really understood, like, the sensation, I guess, behind it of, like, why people loved it so
Yeah,
much.
'cause I mean, like, what? It was sold out for...
Right, and it's still sold out.
Still.
Yeah. So, I mean, like,
yes.
it's still a humongous show, and it was one of those things where she was like, oh, you gotta listen to this. Yeah, and I was like, I remember listening to the first one, and I'm not a big like rap hip hop person. And I was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand it. But then I really like the King George songs. And then
Loyalist.
can't
Can't be friends anymore, Luke. Sorry.
And then I remember we went to New York, and that was one of the plays that I was like, we got to go see, whatever. And we went to see it, and I remember leaving it, and I was just like, that was amazing. But I also remember sitting there going, like, I should have listened to the whole soundtrack before I went and saw it, because there's a lot of things where there's so much happening on stage, and, I mean, I guess we'll get to that later. But, yeah, so, anyways, that's how I got introduced, and now I'm hooked.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Unlike everybody across from me, I don't have to thank Luke Thompson. Back in, I want to say like end of 2015 or beginning of 2016, like right when it was really gaining traction and getting really popular, I dropped my niece off at soccer practice and my sister had to take my car somewhere. So I got in the car with one of the other soccer moms, and she was listening to it. And I was like, what is this? What are we listening to? She's like, oh, you haven't heard of Hamilton? And then just started it over, and the soccer practice took just about the length of the entire soundtrack.
Oh my God, that's a long practice.
Yeah. And it was like
2 hours and 38 minutes.
it was pretty cold out too, so while they were all running and freezing to death, we were jamming out pretty hard to Hamilton in the car.
Nice.
So Susan, wherever you are, thanks.
Thank
Shout
you,
out to
Susan.
Susan if you're listening.
Shouts. I am a pretty big musical theater buff, so I'm kind of up on these sorts of things. So
Tune in next week for the Unicorn Wranglers podcast.
So I had heard about it kind of through. I had heard about it, and I knew Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I liked In the Heights. I had never seen it yet. I've now seen it, which is great. But I knew the music from that, and so I was kind of like excited and knowing about it. And then my dad was like, "Listen, it's going to be really good." He's like, "They're already saying it's going to win every Tony Award," and it hadn't even come to Broadway yet. It was on off Broadway, like the getting to be on Broadway start to it. So everyone, when you hear that, you don't hear that very often for a musical, it's that culturally significant.
Yeah.
And so I remember I downloaded a few songs, and I was working for Radford Women's Basketball at the time. So this is after I left working with the Wahoos for a little bit, and I got the soundtrack for Christmas, and it's like a 3.5-4 hour long drive back after Christmas. So I'd already listened to like 4 or 5 songs. Again, kind of like Luke, like to my ear, I like some of the more hip-hop songs, but I also really liked King George. I liked The Room Where It Happened, like more kind of traditional like theater songs are what I liked at first. And then I remember listening to the whole soundtrack on the way home in the car driving by myself, and I'm not ashamed to say this, and I'm not just saying it just to say it, but I cried. I literally had tears in my eyes on the first listen through. It was incredible. I mean, the story is just so amazing, and you're listening to a little Philip get got, and it's just like geez, this is like legitimately emotional. And from that point on, it was kind of like, all right, when am I going to see this? How can I see this?
The orphanage.
Yeah. And how do you? And I just said, if this is how emotionally moving it is for me, listening to it, I can't believe what it's going to be like when I finally get to see it.
Which we'll get to that here in a little bit. Mine's similar to everyone to my left. Luke went to New York to see it, and he's like, you gotta listen to the soundtrack, because my experience of watching musicals was a little limited. I remember watching Grease when I was younger, and then watching Rent when it came out on DVD. I was, I think, a sophomore in college when it came out. It's a very good movie.
I'm telling you guys, I like Wicked and I like Hamilton.
Don't worry,
that's about it.
Never seen it either, so
Rent's very good. You should
It's
check
great.
it out. So anyway,
I'll have to go see it.
I don't think it's on Broadway anymore.
Oh,
They're doing an anniversary tour right now.
Then we're just
Anyways,
swinging.
So, Luke goes to New York, and he tells me I got to check out the soundtrack. And I'm like, what is this about? Is it about like Alexander Hamilton? He explained the whole story to me. And I remember the first time I listened to it, I was going for a run after work. And he specifically mentioned the song My Shot. So I start my run, I play the song, and I'm listening to it, I was like, this has actually got a really good beat. Like, you're actually kind of running to the beat, and I'm sure that people who are also running down Palafox were looking at me like I was weird because I was kind of bobbing to the music a little bit. And since then, you know, it's been I really like most of the songs. There's very few that I don't like, which is I told Luke this, and I felt like he was a little ashamed of me. I hadn't really heard the full musical until I saw it live.
Well, and I'm like I said, I'm similar to you in that fashion of I was told about it and I was like, you got to listen to the whole thing. And I remember like getting through the first couple and I was like, I can't listen anymore because it's 2 hours and like 38 minutes or whatever of soundtrack, and it was ridiculous. And I was like,
yeah, the first time I got through it all the way through is when we went that one time to go play golf over in Biloxi.
Yeah.
Because it was like the perfect amount of time from here to there. And that was like the first time like I listened to it in one sitting.
Well,
I always listen to it in like 4 songs at a time.
And I have the songs that I skip now still. Yeah. But
which one? Dear Theodosia.
Yeah, that's one of them that, you know, I can skip. But
I skipped Dear Theodosia.
Gosh. You guys are disgusting.
But, you know, so I mean...
Helpless. I can take it or leave it.
No, you're wrong. Keep going, Luke.
I don't know, I lost my train of thought now.
Sorry.
I had heard before going to see it, and this is way after I listened to the cast recording a bunch of times, but I think it's a really good idea, if you haven't seen it yet, to listen to it multiple times before you go.
For sure.
Because the intricacies of the rhyming and the rap, and like Luke was saying, the amount of sheer stuff that's going on stage, you cannot possibly take it in if you're trying to also contemplate what is being said for the first time. I don't think it's possible.
Well, that's Guns and Ships is like 6 words a second.
Yeah.
Some parts.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, like, Hamilton was the first show I saw on Broadway. And then the next night I went to go see Wicked, and Wicked is in such a huge at the Gershwin Theater.
Yeah, it's big.
It's humongous, and there's so much that you can already see just on the outskirts of the stage. And then you watch in the play, and it's like they're bringing out props and props coming in and out and whatever. To where when I saw Hamilton, I remember getting there and I was like, this is it? Like, it's like a wooden steps and like a floor with a turntable on it. Like, I don't. And then when they started I mean, it's just, there's so much going on, so much lyric wise and musically that it's breathtaking. You know, I mean, it's one of those that it's the mix of the new age music with Broadway. And it's a hit.
How about the fact that how many times have we touched a $10 bill and known that it's Alexander Hamilton on the thing, but really know nothing? Like,
right.
Like, I was a history major in college, and I knew he started the first U.S. bank, and that was it. And now, granted that they do take some liberties, and obviously it's not to be taken as complete fact, but that most of the events in there are historically accurate, or at least in the ballpark. You know, it is a very interesting thing to find a story like that at just such a weird time too. You don't see very much. You never really see much American Revolution. You know.
Well, again, one of the more famous shows that there are about that time period is 1776, which is, if you haven't seen it, it's a very good show, but it does go along it's the stuffy, you know, Mr. Adams, dear Mr. Adams, and it's like very what you would think that would be 15 white dudes in a room, you know, arguing about what, you know, whether or not we should try to, you know, revolutionize and go against the British. And then to bring that story, I remember listening to something where Lin-Manuel Miranda was talking about it and saying that he was like, how can you not see this as like the classic rap story, like the guy coming up from nothing and writing his way out of poverty, and he was like, it's like every rapper story. Like again, that just shows his genius that
of course
he sees that and he's like, oh, of course, and everyone else in the world is like, what the there's no way.
So I guess we can transition into, because we've all seen it live, which I think is really cool. We'll go around the table, because we'd all listened to it after seeing it, what were your thoughts on it? Because, of the whole, not just the music, but the choreography, the presentation, everything. We'll start with Waldron.
Well, that was the big thing, is actually taking what you listened, and then putting the visualization to it. I'm actually going to compare it to something a little bit. So a little off topic. I got to see Ghostbusters in the theater the last time in the movie theater. The last time it had its 30-year anniversary, and I remember people laughed at parts I never laughed at, and it like changed how I watched the movie. And that was that same experience. They did things, and there was reaction to parts that I was like, oh, like I would have never, by just listening to the music, I would have never found that part to be that funny and everything. And really, I think because like Luke, I've seen Wicked, and Wicked is very,
it's Broadway. It is straight up Broadway. Wicked is
when I look
Broadway.
at Wicked, I think that's what I think of Broadway. And then to see it kind of like this like real earthy kind of,
it's not pizzazz necessarily.
Yeah, but it's
that new age.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I thought how they were able to do the spinning stage and everything really widened out, the set and everything. So I couldn't stop watching. Like, I was ready to go again. When I got to the end of it.
Away.
Yeah. Like, it was cool. Like, just King George is awesome. Him popping up in the Reynolds pamphlet.
That part's great.
Jake?
So, I mean, kind of going on what Adam said, when you listen to it, you get like a mental image, and then you just start thinking about it over and over again. You're like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then when you see it and you see how the actors interact, and like with the turntable on the stage, that was neat, because like during the cabinet battles, when they're like literally rapping, and you're just kind of like, okay, now I wouldn't have seen this like this, but then after you see it, you're just like, wow, it's impressive.
Well, and to go on that point, like at the very beginning, like Aaron Burr, like I always thought, like in my mind, I always pictured, Hamilton walked into the bar and there Burr was sitting and drinking, and then seeing it, I was like, oh no shit, they're walking down the street. Oh, okay. All right, this now makes more sense. It's just like little things like that you don't pick up.
Because then you see why Burr was kind of like concerned.
Yeah, like, whoa, get away from me, dude.
Like, what are you doing? And then you realize, they were just walking down the street, and then he's like, pardon me, are you Aaron Burr, sir? And you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's little things like that. We're going around the table.
I didn't know if Jake was done yet or not. I thought my initial takeaway leaving the theater the first time I saw it was that was fantastic. I want to see it again. But also at the same time, I had like this overwhelm sensation, because like you walk out and you just sat through 3-hour show, and it's like comparing it back to Wicked, or I even saw Waitress, was there's musical songs in there, but then there's also acting and there's conversation, whatever. This is just straight music. There is very little just talking, and if there is just talking, there's still something going on somewhere else.
Yeah, or instrumentation underneath of it. Yeah.
So that was the thing that was shocking for me, was the fact that it is all music. It's music the whole time, the whole way through, and then just the ensemble cast behind them all, and being able to know where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to be there, and the lyrics that you're supposed to sing, and it's just, I mean, that's the crazy part, was seeing all that. But and then I know you guys asked me, Adam, Derek, and Jake, what was the difference between New York and what you saw in Atlanta? And the only difference was the cast. I mean, for a show to fit, they brought their own personality to their character, but it was the same show, same choreography, and I'd go back and see it a third time, because it was just so amazing and so fantastic.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of it was just the choreography and the dancing and just how much those actors were able to use their bodies to tell the story and just become part of the props and using themselves to move the props in a way that really made sense with the story. And then also kind of, watching it all play out. Like, I never really got satisfied until I watched it. And then I was like, oh, okay, we're looking back. Because, you listen to those two back to back and I'm like, wait, didn't we just kind of go, what's happening? And then you watch it all and they're, going back through time and it's her perspective. And I was just like,
I think it helped.
I finally,
the stage went backwards.
yes, and it all rotated backwards.
Okay.
I left the New York one and I looked at my friend Anna and I was like, I have no clue what happened during Satisfied. Like, what was that? Like, I'm very lost. And then when I saw it the second time in Atlanta, I was like, I see it now. Yeah,
I get it.
Okay.
We're going backwards in time. Joey?
You guys kind of touched on a lot of the things I would definitely say. I think that the turnstile in the middle of it, in terms of just the choreography aspect of it and what it brings, it's so impressively done, and that's something that when you see it for the first time, you get to sense that, because you do get this feeling like Hamilton is constantly like searching for something, reaching for something, moving towards something. So it would just make sense that you'd have this turnstile that keeps things moving all the time in the middle of
Interesting
it.
way to think of it.
And it's just, and to me, that's just really brilliant. And that was cool to see. Satisfied was cool to see, because I'd always, I knew a little, again, I'd listened to it a million times before I went to see it, but I always wanted to see like how that was done. And I think it was just interesting for me too, again, for someone that's probably listened to it hundreds and hundreds of times before going to see it. I thought it was interesting just to see different perspectives on the characters in different ways, and kind of like what Adam was saying earlier, where I laughed at stuff that Burr said that I have never thought was funny when I listened to the cast recording, and the way that the Aaron Burr played it when I saw it. I was like, oh, it's kind of funny, like that.
Yeah.
And we were all like chuckling about it, and you don't necessarily realize that if you're not sitting in there, you're not getting that reaction to it. And I agree with Luke too, that you just leave overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed when I sat down in my seat like 30 minutes beforehand, and I remained overwhelmed for all of it, I would say.
I think for me, I agree with a lot of what you guys said, just kind of putting a visual with the music, but also really the production of it itself. Like in certain songs, when you'd hear the cast go boom and the lights would shine really bright for a quick second, because I've always been a huge fan of matching music and timing of beats and actions and things like that. So I thought production-wise it was really good, and it was actually my first type of show, like seeing a stage show like that ever. So I was blown away by the production of it.
It's really gonna go downhill. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, you really should have saw some.
Wicked. Wicked was pretty awesome.
Wicked was
Wicked is
good
good.
too. Yes,
Wicked-
Wicked
I'm
is
waiting
good.
for Derek to go to his first like community theater event, and he's like, "This is not
This
great."
wasn't Hamilton.
Yeah, see,
Hey,
Derek,
we
I'm
went
with you on that.
to
That
Rocky
was my first
Horror.
Oh yeah, you're
That's
right.
different though. That's an experience. Too. I'm just imagining him going to like Fiddler on the Roof at like a high school production and being like, "Boo! Where's the turnstile?
Where's the spinny thing? Where's the turntable and the bright lights?
Start rapping."
Why do you guys not have Washington on your side?
Were you in the room where it happened?
I geeked out a little bit when I heard that song. Like as soon as the trumpet happened, I'm just like,
That's Derek's song.
I love that song.
That is Derek's song.
well, and that's actually my next question. Favorite Hamilton song?
Oh, how dare you!
Oh,
even
boy.
ask me to choose between
Like
my favorite
currently?
40 children.
Because I rotate through like a good
Can I give
stable
you
of
like my 3 stars?
point,
Can we
too.
do the 3 stars of Hamilton?
Sure.
The Hamilton 3 stars.
Oh, I see what you've done there.
Yeah, see what I did
Good
there?
job, Adam.
Nice.
The viewers can't see what you,
Oh.
or the
I
listeners
picked
can't
Do you
see
have a-
what you did.
Pointing at the playbill.
The playbill with the classic star on it. Okay, so my favorite Hamilton song will forever be "Your Town." I think
great
it's
pick.
just a. I think it's got a little bit of each. like aspect, especially like the first act wrapped into it. Even though the act doesn't end on it, I think we still have 2 more songs after that.
King George,
No, 3.
Theodosia.
Yeah, even though like that's just the emotion that's put into that, because it's almost like everything before that was leading up to that moment, and you know, just to see all the emotion that the actors put into it, as well as seeing each character get their little moment too. That will forever be my favorite one. My 2 sub choices. I really love Wait For It. I know a lot of people don't.
That's actually
That's
one of
my
my
favorite.
That
I think.
One thing in life I can.
Yeah,
That's great.
I think that one I think that really flushes out Aaron Burr a little bit, you know, and I think that's what you needed to kind of understand him, because I think Hamilton is so much more a story of Hamilton, but also Burr as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's really, it's his story as well, going through it and how they kind of intermingle. And then probably my third one would be, God, just any King George.
Yeah, just throw in your
What happened to
obligatory
Guns
King
and
George.
Ships? I thought that
Ooh,
was
Guns
a
and
song.
Ships. Yeah,
I
Guns
mean,
and Ships.
I'm just saying.
Guns and
King
Ships.
George
Yes.
got kicked off the side.
King George got kicked off for Guns and Ships, and so the balance shifts. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Surprised that wasn't at the top, but okay.
No. Yorktown will still beat it, and with Wait For It and Guns and Ships, I'm a very big first act guy.
No, those are great choices.
Yeah. All right, Jake.
Well, you see, you know, some of y'all know, to the listeners that don't really know, but I'm a very patriotic person.
Jake, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love America?
We're gonna go with a solid 1776.
Copy, gotcha. Thank you.
So I mean, pretty much any song that involved George Washington, really, I liked it the best, mainly because, you know,
Here comes the general.
it's
Right
George
Hand Man's
Washington.
good.
So my top song would have to be Right Hand Man, just because, I mean, it's George Washington and he's essentially asking for help, which, you know, everybody sees George as this really big man, like you wouldn't expect for him to need like assistance, but then he comes to Hamilton and asks him to be his right hand man, and you're just kind of like,
And that's where Jake cried.
no, I didn't cry at that point. I'll talk about when I cried later. But I also like the first Stay Alive when they're going through the battle.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a good
I
one.
mean, you just start off with Stay Alive.
That was really cool. That was really cool because during the actual performance, the bullets flying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you always hear the gun start, like,
Yeah,
you hear it,
you
and
hear
then
the gun, but
bullets
you never-
flying while he's sitting there writing. It goes like right over his head. I thought that was a cool part.
And my last one, I mean, I wouldn't say this is my, like, you know, we're saying top three. I wouldn't say this is my least favorite of the three, but, like, What I'd Miss is, that's
What Did
right
I
up there in that top because, you know.
What did I miss?
I just love
Purple
the way
Suit.
how they sing
can't
it
wait.
coming in. It's great. Luke?
Yeah, so I've got more than
Really, guys? You have to look?
I've got more than I don't know the song
I didn't even
titles.
look.
I
Sing
don't have
them,
the song
then sing
titles.
I can sing the songs,
There
but
you go.
knowing the
Alright,
titles
so-
is tough.
I'll list these out. There's a couple more than three.
boy.
Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr, My Shot. We can skip this.
He's literally just reading
he's
it.
going,
going down the
Sky,
list.
You'll be back.
Through the whole list.
You'll Be Back is a great one. Right Hand Man.
I don't know if you
And then I
understand
can
the
skip the
spirit
rest of them. Oh, Meet
game.
Me Inside. That's a good one. Meet Me Inside. It's,
Inside.
it's got like that. Yeah.
Don't call me son.
Guns and Ships.
You gotta
great
pick
one.
your favorite, Lucas.
Yeah, you're just
I don't have
listing
a favorite.
songs.
Non-stop.
Thank you.
Non-stop.
I would
gotta
say
be my
nonstop would be your favorite.
I can see
Gentlemen
that.
of the jury, I'm curious.
Yeah, because
Yes.
you know that.
You say that
With-
every day.
Are you aware that we're making history?
Oh
Hannah?
boy.
This is the first murder trial of our brand new nation.
Just take it away. Just
The
keep going.
liberty
I'm getting
behind
so close to just
deliberation.
unplugging your mic.
Diamond,
Please.
don't do that to the people.
Press F8.
Say no.
Oh boy. So mine kind of, they just depend on my mood. Lately I've been listening to a lot of Wait For It. Again, I just think it's a really beautiful song. Makes me happy. I jammed out really hard yesterday to My Shot. I think that's definitely probably my favorite.
I feel like that's
My
always a
Shot.
great jam.
It's always a good one. It's always a good choice. And then both of the cabinet battles.
Cabinet battles are great.
I mean,
They're
you can't
great.
beat the cabinet battles.
They're just fun.
I like
and
how these
different.
were done with actual.
I was gonna say,
Microphones.
the best
They were
part
like
of that was
battle
when
raps.
they.
Like they actually
Like it
have
was
the
a-
mic in their hand. That's
Yeah.
the best.
Joey.
This is like asking me to choose a favorite child, and it's cruel. It's
Good thing
unusual.
Joey doesn't have any children.
The one thing I would say, Wait For It is one of the first ones that I think I like really loved, which is so crazy that anyone say they didn't like it, since it's maybe the best song, just like it's the best song put together. And I'm a big One Last Time fan. I'm surprised that
I get really
old
sad.
Jake didn't say something about that.
I just want to sit under my own fig tree.
That one is also really impressive because there's literal actual words from his like final address that Hamilton is saying over it, and it's just so well done and put together. And then I do have a really tough time choosing other one. I can't. I don't know.
From the first act.
I know it's My Shot or Nonstop are both up there. I also love Satisfied. Satisfied, I think, is
Satisfied.
Joey's with me. I can't pick a song. You
I
can't.
can't.
nail
It's
me
very
down to
difficult.
one
Just
song.
one song.
It's hard. If I could
agree.
pick like one per character, I might be able to do it. But yeah, no, it's just, I think it's kind of incredible. Like we've been talking about our favorite songs, is that, and like Luke said, this is double, triple the amount of music than is in like a traditional musical.
Yeah.
That's incredible. The first 15 songs of the first act are pretty much better than like any other song in any other show, and that's, you could take like literally any of them, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I guess I'll put these in order. 3 kind of flips between Nonstop and Satisfied. Though I will say It Might Be Nice has been growing on me ever
It
since
might be nice.
I saw it live.
Nice.
2 would be My Shot, and 1 is The Room Where It Happens. Which, a funny story about The Room Where It Happens. Those who know me know that I can be a bit of a troll sometimes.
Yeah, you can.
No, Derek, stop it. That's not why we're having a roast of the Derek Diamond or anything.
You would never, would you?
Hey, that was your idea, by the way.
Yeah, I'm saying.
So, our groundskeeper at work, Dustin, because I know he'll be listening, so hello, Dustin. He is not the biggest Hamilton fan, so I decided to put The Room Where It Happens in our sound computer. And as they work on the field after the game, sometimes I will play that or our Hamilton firework track.
Best part.
I've got two quick stories. There's the one where we play the song, and then I just get this radio call. Dustin to Derek, and there's just a long pause. I hate you. This was the night that Adam, you and Luke were doing your show in Tallahassee. I played the song again because I noticed Dustin's, just off by himself, working on the pitcher's mound. So he's got his rake, and I play the song, and he just stops and just slowly looks up at the press box. And I'm just like,
It was honestly great because we still had the windows open, so we could was
we could
direct
openly
line of
communicate.
sight. So he just you could see the death glare coming from the first.
but it's okay. He let me know that I was number 1 in his book, so we're okay.
He sure did.
Well, there was when we were building the mascot transport, and Uncle Wes was in there and was like, "Yeah, you guys just keep playing that. What's that
The
song?
song
like,
where
trapped
in
in
the
a closet or something?"
Yeah.
It's like R. Kelly. Derek's got R. Kelly in the sound computer.
Yeah, he was like, the closet where something happens. I don't know. And I
I
was
think
like,
you asked me about that. I was like, no.
I was
no,
like-
I do not have any R. Kelly in the sound computer.
Oh,
Wes, how about
buddy.
in the room where it happens? He's like, yeah, that's the one.
Good old Uncle Wes.
They're
totally
all
forgot he
about
brought
the
that up.
the 14-minute,
Yeah, they'd rather have the 14 minutes,
30 second each 14
The firework
songs
track.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Than the 1 3-minute song
Yes,
of that's the funniest thing.
they like the variety.
Yeah.
I think it's because once you start listening to The Rumor It Happened over and over again, you're just like, oh wow. But then the firework track, you're like, hey,
There's more to this story.
You know, I think he just still hates it.
I
either
think
way.
he
Dustin's.
still
I
hated
think
it.
Dustin's a secret Hamilton closet listener.
No,
We're gonna.
I've been working really hard on
I
this.
think he is.
for
No.
a few months now, and
I have
when I
faith
bring
in
it
him.
up, I think
Listen.
he's gonna punch me.
I was right about Joey not being a flight risk for the Unicorn Wranglers. Listen next week,
Tune in
Unicorn
next
Wranglers
week for the
podcast.
Unicorn Wrangler podcast.
But I think he might be a closet listener, or we're gonna get him there.
Okay.
That would be amazing. Though I wouldn't get to troll him though, so it would take that fun out of it. But whatever. Favorite Hamilton character?
King George.
Lafayette.
Lafayette.
I go with Aaron Burr.
Here comes the general.
I go Burr as well.
I became a fan of Burr after watching the live show. Like, he was my favorite actor of that whole thing.
I think it's kind of the classic. This happens a lot in musicals where the non-lead gets like the meatiest part, and like Jesus Christ Superstar, like the best part is really Judas. He gets like all the good songs. He gets to play like a little different beats than the lead, and that to me is what Aaron Burr gets. Is he has such a interesting like introspective part, and part of why I like Wait For It as well is you learn so much about him, and you realize you can just put yourself in his shoes and realize the frustration that would come from not having success when you want it so much, and watching someone else pretty much just due to their like gumption and willingness to take chances get that success that you so desperately want. And you know, there's just lots of great moments when, you know, like when he's talking to Washer the first time and he says, I love how you've been shooting at the enemy from a distance, and George Washington's like, what the and you're just like, oh, I totally get this dude's psyche. It's just so he's my favorite for sure, I think.
Yeah.
For sure, I think. Sorry, I'm gonna say yes, he is my favorite.
Final answer.
Final answer.
What about favorite performance from when you guys saw the live show?
Oh boy.
Mine would be Aaron Burr would be one. A close second would be Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Yes, seeing Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, Thomas Jefferson.
That really like
His little
closed the loop
mannerisms
for
were
me, yeah.
great.
Does pimp walk?
Yeah.
His purples is God. I love that purple suit.
I thought our Eliza was phenomenal.
Yes.
I feel like those are really big shoes to fill, and she was just amazing.
Yeah, I think we agreed because I saw mine at the Kennedy Center in DC, but I think we agreed we saw the same cast.
We saw the same cast.
And I thought Eliza's voice was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my whole life.
Yeah.
Burn was crazy.
Oh my god.
Like I don't
Yeah.
skip
Yes.
Burn, but I was like,
Yeah, that Burn is one that always gets skipped when I'm driving, and then she starts singing.
Why? You
It's
just
just
turn
one
it
of
up
those
and you
things.
sing and you just cry.
Yeah, it's
And
good
you're just
cry.
so upset.
see, that's Hurricane in me. I'll
That's
do
great,
Hurricane.
too.
Hurricane, yeah.
I'll skip Burn though.
Eliza was fantastic.
Yeah.
She had just
Yeah.
like
She
such
was
a
great.
pure, like it almost reminded me if you've ever seen like River Dance or Celtic Women, how they are able to have that like super pure voice that doesn't have like any vibrato. Her voice was so like, right on the note, pure.
She had the best like singing performance, I think, out of the entire
Yeah.
cast. Luke, did you answer?
No.
Do you have an answer?
It's Luke's bedtime apparently.
I don't know. It's hard for me to choose
Well, you know,
because
he's been a King George fan this whole time.
I know I'm a huge King George fan. I mean, it's for me, it's hard to choose, and that's the thing is because they're all so good and they're all unique in their own ways. But I mean, if I had to pick someone that stood out the most, would have to be the multiple someones, and that's just the ensemble because they just add so much to the overall. I mean, you go back to Guns and Ships and how they're on knee to foot, you know, walking across the stage, you know, and it's all in sync and with the whole main cast and everything. you
And
know,
they're
so
on
that's-
stage like the whole time.
right the whole time.
It's that.
So that's
that is
the thing.
yeah, that's
was-
really
Yeah,
impressive.
there's certain songs you don't notice them, and then you're like, wait a minute. Look at them in the background. And you're
Right.
like, oh, wow.
And that's back to that overwhelming factor of they're always there. Somebody's all, and you know the other thing that I noticed too. Side note was, a lot of the songs, when it was, somebody talking back and forth, you'd see a couple of the main characters up on the top balcony just overwatching what was going on, which you don't necessarily look up, or you might look up and go, oh, okay, back to the action. But it's something that I noticed both in New York and when I saw it in Atlanta, and I think it just adds to that feel of the the overall show.
Why do you guys think the show is so popular? Because now that I've been kind of exposed to it, I hear more and more people that have listened to it and just talk about how great it is.
Well,
Jinx.
Well, this is why I think. I think what it does is it escapes the bonds of a traditional Broadway play, and it opens itself up to someone like me who I'm not really going to go listen to a lot of Broadway. I can listen to it. I think its story is extremely unique. Where in a way. And I think, Joey, in a way, you've kind of told me this before, where in a way, like sometimes performances can get kind of like caught up in themselves and kind of be a little self-centered. Like this was completely off the wall subject. I mean, this was the colonial period. This wasn't some up and coming artist trying to make it big, or doing that type of stuff. Or it was a really original story. And I think if there's one truth to our country and the people who live in our country, is we do enjoy self-praise. Like, we love our story, and this was a very unique, creative way of telling our story,
True, packaged in a very different way.
In a very different way. And then the fact that it's a multicultural cast, which is... Like you said, you expect wigs, powdered wigs, and properness, and it's not. It's gritty, it's dirty, it's the birth of a nation. It's that whole kind of everything that we've ever been taught and is great about our country, all wrapped up. Every idea wrapped up in one, even down to freaking scandals, and like it's the snapshot of our country in a 3-hour time frame. And I just it was amazingly. I don't know how he sat down there and had those words come to him and put them in that arrangement. And I can't fathom that.
Yeah.
I cannot fathom how he sat down there and for an entire year worked on Alexander Hamilton or
My Shot.
Like, as a musician.
Well, it is incredible that he, how long, one, it took like 7 years, and how, but like you said, how one song essentially was a driving force for him for like a year's time, and everything like just maybe clicks and you just go.
Yeah. So that's why I think that it's so, I just think it really captures us. I
mean, I really think it's popular mainly because, like, it's teaching you a history lesson without you realizing it. Like, you sit down for 3 hours and you learn. I mean, a lot of people already know, like, the main details about the revolution, but now you're seeing it from, like, one person's perspective. And then, like, you see, like, the grittiness. And hard to explain, like, I mean, you're learning, but you're not doing like traditional.
You're learning in an entertaining way.
You're absorbing it in a way that helps you learn it. I mean, and then you also get to see the scandals. You're like, you don't learn about this in the textbooks. You wouldn't be like, oh, had no idea that Alexander Hamilton had an affair, and he wrote it down right here. So, highlight.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
I think it has to do with the way the music is. It's that rap, hip hop, but there's also the Broadway, the traditional Broadway tunes in there that you hear, and I think that's what brings about that new culture of people, so to say, of, because there are people like Adam that don't, are not big musical people, that won't sit there and watch you know, a Wicked or whatever and enjoy it because it is Broadway by definition, you know, but then you all of a sudden listen to this and it's completely different. It's something that we hear almost all the time on the radio. It's, you know, the top 40 type songs, and it's all of a sudden, now what Jake's saying, teaching you this lesson that you don't know you're getting, but you get out of there and you're like, you know, I think it's at the end of it, it's like every other founding father story gets told except for Hamilton. You know what I mean? Because
Done get got.
Done get got. I mean,
Done get got.
and he was not liked. I mean, that's
Right.
kind of part.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
wasn't
they
liked.
like let's just bury that story right there.
I think it's just kind of piggybacking off of what Luke said. It is so different. You know, we have like fun musicals like the Book of Mormon or Avenue Q. They're fun, but they're still Broadway. You have this, it's fun and it's so different. It's so fast paced and energetic, and it kind of just immerses you just right into the middle of it. Like you just kind of feel like you're a part of this for 3 hours. And like I've seen other shows, and you're like, okay, I'm really feeling it at about hour 2. Like I'm ready to get out of here. With this one, I just didn't ever look away for even a second. So I just think that it's so fun and so different than what we've seen previously that people are really just latching onto it.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything that's been said. I think, like I was talking about, the first 15 songs, you could make that a hip hop album, and I think it would be like the #1 hip hop album in the United States. You know what I mean? Like that's how good the music is. It transcends your typical Broadway culture. I do think a lot of it comes down to the story, like Adam was saying, that on one hand it's so different and out there, right? But on the other hand, it's kind of our traditional hero underdog story where you have someone that is, you know, from the slums essentially, that pulls themselves up by their bootstraps and makes a name for themselves, and is maybe a little bit arrogant, is maybe a little bit of a dick, but at the same time you appreciate everything that they do because you can recognize their brilliance. So I think the story, the music, I think a lot of times what is difficult for, I think you brought up a good point in that, you know, there are, Book of Mormon is one of my favorites, right? Avenue Q, that's another great musical. But those are both like inconsequential when you get right down to it, right? Like you don't need those stories to be told. And what's difficult for a musical is because they're so whimsical. Literally, they're people singing and dancing and doing jazz hands. Like it's very difficult to have an earnest musical without it being like really heavy and weighing it down. That's just hard to do. Like I think of Les Miserables, and like I love it. It's a great show, but it's like, oh my gosh, she's still singing about that time that guy. You know, it's just like it just weighs you down so much. So for this to both have that nature of the story, that it's funny, but it also has something to say, and you feel like it has to be said. Whereas so many other great musicals, you're like, it doesn't have to be out into the world. And this feels like if it wasn't out in the world, things would be way worse. And so that being able to combine the great music, the hip hop nature, the multicultural cast with a story that truly feels necessary, I think is what is able to make it transcend our culture in general.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think that it's because it's told in a mix of a contemporary. If we're talking about the live show, it's told in a contemporary and traditional Broadway way. There's a very nice balance between those two that I think works really well. And I think that's because if you think about telling the story of Alexander Hamilton in a style of hip hop, you're like, I don't know if that's going to work. But then when you listen to it, it does work.
There's no way it should work, Derek. Let's just be honest. There's no way that if you pitch that, it should work. Okay, it's
but the
not
fact
possible.
that it does work, I think, makes it so appealing.
Who's the I'm slipping. Who's the guy who plays Lafayette and
Debbie Diggs?
Yeah, he said in it, like when he first was approached by, because they were all friends and they were doing stuff, like he was like, yeah, it's a hip hop about Alexander Hamilton. He was like, oh, that's gonna be terrible. He's like, that's a terrible idea.
And here we are today.
But it's funny too. Something that popped in my mind too is that when we talk about it being so different, the one thing I would say in terms of nicest of musicals is that we actually have had like low key hip hop and rapping nature in our musicals throughout time. Now, it has not been done like this, but Luke mentioned, I think next week, that his favorite, he grew up watching The Music Man, right? That you love The Music Man. The Music Man is essentially a main character that doesn't really sing, that really raps, quote unquote, right?
Where can people hear that Luke was a fan of The Music Man?
On the Derek Diamond Experience next week with the Unicorn Wranglers.
No, that was this week.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That was during this episode.
Was
No,
it?
it wasn't.
No,
it was next week.
Oh,
I was gonna
jeez.
say.
Next week's episode.
Next week.
Oh, goodness.
So like that, I mean, we did Footloose at my high school, and Footloose has like a scene where there's like a rapping moment in it as well. Like it's actually the way that he just spun the Great White Way of Broadway and made it to something that makes sense today without actually changing it. That's why you see like 70-year-olds that go and they're not like, I don't like this doesn't make sense to me, and they love it because it is actually calling back a lot of what Broadway already does super well.
So, last question I'll ask before we get out of here. Would Hamilton work as a movie, and if so, how would you do it?
Oh,
All
boy.
right, so I'm going to already say that while I was watching this in New York, I was already plotting where I would put the cameras and how I would shoot it as a live show. And I think you can make it work, but I just think there's so much going on that it would be like, I don't know how you would make it a movie.
Yeah.
My thing about it is kind of the grittiness, the randomness of the potential things that could possibly happen during the show. Like, there's a reason why I'm not a big Glee fan, and that's because it sounds like it's in a quarantine area. You know, like you don't, like I don't connect to that because it's perfect, and that's what bothers me about it. You know, it's perfect.
Well, I guess
like it's in a studio. They're lip syncing. They're doing all this stuff, and I don't. And I think that's where musicals have the trouble translating to film, is because it's like when you see a musical, it's not perfect. Each character puts in their own flair. It's different from night to night to night to night. It's all the same stuff, but what they might do is different. And when you ingrain something like that in film, there is no changing it once it's done. And that is the way it is. And you can... And just with seeing that already be there, like it's already there. We have it as a musical. We have it in the theater. People are seeing it. It's not like it's a brand new movie that just came out and no one's ever seen it and we're gonna go see it and we're all gonna experience it. It's already been experienced. So I don't know how that's going to translate.
Okay, can I just say something real quick? I don't know either. I agree with you. But Les Miserables, right, came out in 2012. Okay, had a budget of $61 million. It made $441 million U.S. sales.
Now,
okay, so
ask me
I
if it's gonna make
guarantee.
money
I was gonna
or
say
not.
that's all I was gonna
That's
say.
my
I guarantee you that it would kill.
Let's pull up
crush.
the Rotten Tomatoes and see.
Fair enough. And
Like,
I think that.
And that's my thing, is will it capture the essence of what the musical or the play is? I don't think it's going to be able to come anywhere near. Now, that being said, it's going to make a shit ton of money.
Make a lot of money.
It's the
no
Star
doubt.
Wars effect. Like, you know, Han Solo was not a great film.
And I'm even gonna say that, like, I wouldn't even say an actual movie, but there's been all this talk, or not talk necessarily now, but you know, Fox did Grease live, and they did the Christmas Story live, and then they did NBC did Hairspray live. I'm even talking like, would a network pick it up and do it as like a live musical
I don't
event?
think that would happen anytime soon because it doesn't make any sense
now.
for,
But I see
the
that
production to
happening more than I would a musical, and that would capture more of your live grittiness and all that without the studio and all that.
Making it a
'cause
straight
is.
up movie.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't want it to be studioized.
No,
like,
I do not want to.
I know you don't, but at the same time, I think that the story is good enough that it would work.
And if you do
It would work.
if
It
you
would
had the
work
people
that-
behind it, it would turn out good.
It would work, and I think it would not be the same, right? It would
No.
be like your favorite book versus the book that got made into the movie, right? They're not the same, but I think that you would find. I still think as a moviegoer, if they did it correctly, right, I still think you'd find enjoyment out of it, right? Like Harry Potter is like my favorite book series ever. The books are so incredibly more detailed and vivid and perfect, right, than the movies. But I don't hate that the movies are out there. I think that it was cool to see it like that. Now, it's not the same where you're going from a text to a visual. This is a visual. It's already a visual, and it's already a perfect visual. But I still think, I don't think anyone would be like, man, I'm pissy that got made into a movie.
No, and I don't think it is. I just don't think it would be able to capture what it's captured now.
Yeah.
And that's my things. I don't know if doing it in film will do it any justice. It will just be
You don't want to. You don't
I
want to
think
see
it
like
could
a
still
great
be a
big
good
blood
movie.
spurt, like
like what's going to happen?
Yeah.
they're doing Yorktown and people's limbs are falling.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Now, wait a minute. Now, that might actually be kind of cool.
I'd
You
watch
get
it
Bruce
then.
Wilson there?
But you're talking about a musical that relies so heavily on its ensemble to play those parts.
Right.
Well, when that doesn't translate to film, you can't have somebody being a bullet.
Yeah.
It makes sense on a stage. In a movie, it doesn't.
Well, and that's my question. Like, is it a movie? Would it be like a movie? Like you said, like a Saving Private Ryan? Like,
Right,
is
and
that
they're like-
what we're dealing with?
they're
Or
like
are we,
crawling
are we
through the
literally
muck
just
singing.
saying we're going to take the Broadway show and just
Shoot it with
shoot
camera.
it?
They
I
would
think
make
that's
it a
the way
movie.
you do
That's
it.
yeah.
I think
That's
that's
what I
how
would
you
do.
have to do it.
I
Shameless
don't think
plug.
they would
If
do-
somebody's gonna shoot that, I'm a camera operator. Would love to work
And
on
I know
it.
that that's
okay?
not how they're going.
No, I
But
think
it's
that
gonna be
I
like a
do
movie
think it has the ability. I mean, again, like I said, like they've done this and they've done it with other songs or like they call them like operatic shows because they're musical the whole time, right? They've done it with Rent. They've done it with Les Mis. I think they could do it. I agree.
Well,
There's
and
no
I'm,
way to capture
I'm
it.
looking
but-
forward to seeing Wicked. Right? That one.
That is such a
becoming
lie.
a movie, right?
What's a lie?
That Adam's looking forward to seeing that.
No, I'm looking forward to see the difference between
When is
the
that coming out?
film version,
2019.
because
December.
that I have seen the film. I have seen the real like the live performance of that
Right.
in London, and so seeing that versus seeing how it like Les Mis. I watched like 15 minutes of Les Mis and was like, "What am I watching?"
Yeah.
Because I never saw.
And
it
you might
before.
have people that have never seen it before that maybe see it through a movie first if they're not like fans of Broadway music,
Right.
then they probably won't get it.
Yeah.
If you've seen it before, you might. If you haven't seen it before, but you like musicals, but maybe you don't have the means to go see a show that costs like $300 to go see it, I think that you would probably like it. And that way I wouldn't mind it being out
the
there.
lotteries.
Yeah, right. $10 lottery.
Yeah.
I think it could work as a movie, but like you said, it wouldn't capture. It wouldn't be the same. Now, it could still be good, but it just wouldn't capture that same charm that the musical has. Well, is there any other Hamilton comments you guys want to throw out there before we call this a show?
I love the show and would love to go see it again.
Now accepting donations to see it next weekend in Chicago. So if anybody would like to contribute, it will be my birthday weekend.
Okay. Do you guys ever think there will be another original cast?
Yes.
And if so, when? Because I would like to go to that.
Give it 2 years.
I
I
would,
would
too.
like to save up some money. For
I'd
that.
also like better notice than I had this last time.
Same.
Jake,
Instead of
two-
calling me
2 days
4
notice
days
was-
before
2
the
days
show.
notice was plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would also like better notice
got
so I'm not
lucky.
on the other side of the country.
I will take that up with the Hamilton scheduling tour people.
I mean, I got really lucky. My manager's like, "Hey, yeah, sure, you can have Saturday off. I don't care."
Shout out to Jake's Walmart manager.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. If you're listening, you're
Lance,
the real MVP on this
the real
one.
MVP.
Well, that's all I've got. So,
Derek, thank you for
thanks
having
for
us.
coming on the show.
Back to back.
Thanks.
Hopefully you guys had fun with that revisit of the Hamilton Roundtable. I know I certainly did. And I will say that is one thing I miss about the old format of the show is doing episodes like these with friends. But they are fun memories to have and fun to go back and listen to every now and then. But for next week's show, you'll be hearing the audio version of my interview with writer, director, and actor Mike Mayhall. He comes on the show to talk about his Emmy-nominated series, Bronx SIU, as well as his career as an actor, both in theater as well as film, and the transition to writing and directing. The video version is on Facebook Live if you want to go check that out, but if you prefer the audio version, that will be out on next week's episode. But until then, you can check out past episodes of this show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere you can get podcasts. Just search for The Derek Diamond Experience. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DDiamondPodcast. And thank you, as always, to my close friends, the Unicorn Wranglers, for providing the theme music for the podcast. You can check out all their music on Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. And that's going to do it for this week's show, so enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe and fun 4th of July weekend. Enjoy Hamilton. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of the Derek Diamond Experience. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and we'll see you guys back here next Thursday.